Hi, friend. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is, I think, the very first live episode of the Catching Your Breath podcast, and you're getting to see it first right here on Facebook Live before it even shows up on Apple Podcast. Today, I'm so excited to be talking with one of my best friends in the whole world, Joshua M. Casey, who is releasing tomorrow, Wednesday, January 6th, his first book called Tracking Desire. This is from the back cover of the book. Joshua M. Casey's first book is a story for those still searching for the source of their inconsolable longing. By framing his own journey through the spiritual pilgrimage of the church year, these universal human movements of expectation and arrival, death and life are given fresh perspective. These arcs follow Joshua through the death of his father as a child, growing into a deep belief in his pastoral call, his growing dis-ease with his evangelical tradition, and eventually the entire institution, to college ministries, the priesthood, and ultimately out of the only work he ever conceived doing. They also pursue Joshua through marital infidelity, reconciliation, and shifting concepts of human beings' longings and desires for each other. Tracking Desire is no panacea for the spiritually dispossessed, but neither does it leave readers in the throes of confusion. Rather, it offers a faith trajectory beyond the confines of the church by identifying the Christ story across all story, encouraging readers to find Christ in the people all around, and eventually in the very earth under their feet. So I was given the honor of writing the foreword for this beautiful, heart-wrenching, hopeful, honest story. And I thought I would share, before I bring Josh on, what I have to say about the book in the foreword. So here you go, and then we'll get started with this conversation. Friend, you are in for a treat. Josh dropped this book on my desk a couple of years after I first met him, and I was hooked. We'd connected already as fellow outcasts who had been chewed up and discarded by the Christian machine. We had cried side by side into superb lagers and unlocked the healing catharsis that comes from mourning with someone who knows the precise shape of your pain because they've lived it themselves. But this book, sweet baby Jesus, I was not prepared. It broke my heart open all over again, and in the best way. In these pages, Josh tells the story of tragedy and triumph, of hopes careening and then dashed, of betrayal inflicted and suffered, and of faith not lost, but transformed. He traces the pull of divine longing through the movements of the liturgical year, which, let me tell you, knocked the socks off of this son of the tongues-praying name-it-and-claim-it crowd, and speaks to the sorrows, confusions, and bewitching joys that make up our shared human experience. I've heard my fair share of deconstruction stories, not to mention living my own, but this one resonates in my chest unlike any other, in that place just beneath the rib cage, where hope resides. And I'm not just talking about the way he turns a fierce spotlight on the nastiness of behind-the-scenes church politics and the real human lives that make up its collateral damage. The lives that all too often get swept under the sanctuary rug and smothered into silence. I'm not just talking about the way he weaves a tapestry of ancient voices testifying to the universality of doubt and struggle as an integral part of the life of faith. P.S. Joshy, I love you, but you read way too much old shit. Take a break from all that depressing Russian what's-his-name crap. Maybe try some Shel Silverstein? Seriously, we're worried about you. I'm talking about the sheer humanity of this story. I'm saying that Josh bears his heart with a humility and self-awareness that totally floors me. When we tell our stories, we usually only try to show the camera our good side. And yes, I'm an Enneagram 3, so I know a thing or two about flattering camera angles. Josh doesn't do that. He doesn't present a curated image in these pages, but instead is unflinchingly honest. Even at his own expense, he names the pain visited on him by others, but he also names the pain he inflicted. None of us make it through this life without suffering. and without causing suffering, and without sometimes lying winded on the ground, bewildered in the face of a silent universe, whispering, "Why?" Josh's story doesn't shy away from those moments, but instead walks us straight into that space where we feel most piercingly alone and says, "I have been here too. We are in this together." What I'm saying is, this is some good shit you're holding in your hands. What I'm saying is this book is a work of art, and you are not prepared. Buckle up and enjoy the ride, friend. All right, Josh Casey, thank you for joining me today. Let's talk about tracking desire. Gosh, it's been so cool to follow you on this journey of writing and publishing this book. And I'm super, super, super proud of you. And so why don't you take a minute and just kind of give us the gist of the book, why you wrote it, who's it for, what's it about?
Yeah. First off, quick note for everyone. There's a small possibility someone may walk in behind me or whatnot. I'm currently at one of my side gigs, which is working at my favorite brewery here in town, and I'm very excited. I get to brew my own small batch that we're releasing.
So fun.
So I'm here that's why I'm here during the day, and people may walk by. So if you see that, that's what it is. It's beer people, which means they're good people. So my book is titled Tracking Desire, a memoirish walk through faith, failure, and finding God under my feet. It is called a memoir-ish walk because it's not simply just a linear story from here to there. It's very much a interwoven narrative of my own story, largely in line, but not entirely, where we cover major aspects of my life in and out of the church, and particularly of ministry. I was a pastor's kid, a pastor's kid, and had some early life trauma with family death and then just other issues that really impacted my relationship with my family and with the faith that was interwoven with my family. And then, I grew up and decided to become a pastor too, because I hadn't had enough of it yet. And and over the course of my time in Bible college and then ministry, I basically got kicked out of two different campus ministries, once because I was an idiot and once because other people were. And then that's the short version. You can read the book to do the rest.
Me too.
And then I tried to move traditions. I had even while I was still in this evangelical tradition that I grew up in, I had begun to become more connected with the liturgical church, and I really appreciated the Episcopal Church's more progressive, forward-looking social stances, and so they were the ones that had the liturgy that had initially drawn me in, and so I kind of threw in my lot with them. And my attempts to then essentially move my ministry from the evangelical church to the Episcopal Church, it wasn't completely stopped, but I began to notice some patterns in my experiences in previous denominations, and began to see that people are people, and the church is going to be the church wherever it is. And I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And so the story of my narrative there chronicles this movement, kind of out of ministry but deeper into God, and maybe a less Christian church oriented way, but still very, very much looking for the divine in all things. And so the reason why it's called a memoir-ish is because the whole story is structured around the narrative flow is structured around the church year, the liturgical calendar. And so I bring in stories and thoughts and discussions along the lines of these other parts of the tradition that help bring light to my story, as well as show the fact that my story is just part of something bigger, and that in fact the church calendar is part of something bigger than itself too. So that's kind of the direction of the book.
That's awesome. And it is, I think what I love about it is that it is a difficult narrative. It's a heart-wrenching narrative, and you don't shy away from the ugly parts. You don't shy away from the pain. You don't shy away from your own screw-ups. And somehow, in true Josh Casey fashion, you've made it beautiful. The book sings, I think, is one of the very first things that I said to you about this book. It sings. So we will talk more about it, I'm sure, as we go on, but I do have some questions that are separated in three categories. I want to talk about reading, writing, and religion. So first, I want to know your favorite childhood book.
Favorite childhood book? When I remember specifically reading on my own and just saying that I loved this book, it was probably Hatchet by Gary Paulson.
Oh, what a great book. Yeah.
Actually, probably Brian's Winter, which is the sequel, was the one that I
haven't read that one
more. But
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man. For me, it was Tex. S.E. Hinton. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, man. But The Hatchet is a great one, too. Very good. Mm-hmm. First book that made you cry.
Oh, shit.
First book you remember making you cry. How about that?
I'm sure it went back further than that. I'm trying to think first book that I remember making me cry. Oh man. I mean, Lord of the Rings seems too on the nose for me, and that was like in middle school anyway. So so we'll say Lord of the Rings is a placeholder, but I'm going to think if I can come up with something earlier than that.
Okay.
I'm sure that was there.
I feel like this one is like just for you, this next question, because you are I don't know. I know enough about you that I think you're going to go, I can answer this pretty easy. What's your favorite underappreciated novel?
Favorite underappreciated novel? Mm-hmm. Well, if we're talking underappreciated by like today's standards, mm-hmm. I would say Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak.
Okay.
So it's a classic. It's very well known. It's not like people don't know it. I mean, they made a massive movie about it in like the 60s or something, and so it's well known, but not enough people have read it. And it's just a sweeping, epic narrative of just kind of one guy's life and his interactions with the people that love him.
Love it. Least favorite book you've ever read?
The Missional Church. I don't remember the dude's name. I had to read it.
With all my heart.
I had to read
That's such a Josh Casey answer. Oh, that's fantastic.
I hated that book.
I love you with all my heart. Okay, all right, we're moving on to the writing portion of the interview here, Mr. Casey. Do you view writing as a kind of spiritual practice? Yes or no? Why or why not?
A spiritual practice in that anything that we give ourselves to is a spiritual practice. So yes.
Oof, that was way too easy. Okay, maybe this one's a little more difficult. What did you edit out of this book?
Not much. That's why it's really freaking long.
300 plus pages.
And I blame that. That goes to Kay's feet.
Absolutely. My
told me to
God.
cut some shit out. He didn't.
Kay, we love you.
So let's see here. I remember I chucked out an entire section in the Christmastide. That's probably one of the shorter sections is on Christmastide.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Phone's telling me low power. You can shut up, phone. So I chucked out an entire section on that where you would love this. It was a story about me falling asleep while watching Christmas Vacation and then waking up at the moment when he goes on his rant about the Jelly of the Month Club.
Oh, heck yeah.
And so then, like, in the dream, I'm like envisioning interactions with family members and stuff. And so I chucked that. It just didn't fit. That was probably the biggest entire section of text that I took out. I took that out pretty early on in the process.
Okay.
So
what was the hardest piece of your story that you had to write?
Definitely the section in the Lent and then Holy Week. I discussed an affair that I had when I was in campus ministry, and trying to tell the story, I think, in such a way that I can share that I don't overshare, because nobody needs all of the details.
Sure,
but they
absolutely
need the story, and trying to share it in such a way that I show that I am legitimately like repentant for the things that I have done against people that I love, and that includes the young woman, and obviously, most obviously, my wife, and myself, and my kids, and self-flagellating as
there you are.
And
okay.
Full of shame. Oh, am I there?
Yep, you're back. You're good.
So telling it in such a way that it wasn't just all self-flagellation and full of shame. because that's and Kay did a really good job of helping to kind of pull some of that back in where it wasn't quite so.
She won't let you beat yourself up. She won't do it.
Yeah.
I've written a book or two with her. I should know.
Yeah, right. So she's like, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what's going on here.
Yep.
So
I love that. Why do you use such big words?
I love words, man. I love words so much. I have a list on my phone that I no lie set a reminder to quiz myself on every month, and then also when I add new words, I go back through and I see if I remember. And I love the taste of words. I love the rhythm that they give to text, and I grew up as a musician, and I'm a pretty strongly mediocre musician. But that sense of rhythm and flow have definitely been the thing that really helped me get my writing to a level that I think is good. So.
I like that. Tell me about an early experience where you learned that language has power.
I was in 4th grade, 5th grade. We were on the playground, and I got in a argument with a young girl of color, and we were just trading insults back and forth. And I realized when I said something that was over the line, not because like no one in my family is like, I mean, I think as a white person in America, we all are racist to a certain degree. Like we are working through that. No one in my family, in my immediate family, I would consider overtly racist by any means. But so like I didn't hear this at home or things I'm trying to say, but like I said something that was over the line. I saw her face. I was like, oh shit, that like what I said was worse than if I had slapped her. And it was just on the playground fighting, trying to trying to say the thing, but like it was like a nuclear, and I realized that was what it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, that has stayed with me my entire life. And like, it's one of those things I wish that I could know her. I mean, it was at a school in a different state, in a different town. And like, it's like, I wish I could know who she was so I could apologize and tell her that I've learned, and how much I still have to go. But
I love that. Okay, so you're one of my best friends, and because of that, I know that you feel deeply. You got a lot of feels.
Indeed, all the feels.
Do you think that someone could become a writer if they don't feel emotions strongly? A good writer? Can you be a good writer without emotion?
I think so. I think that it depends on what you're trying to write.
So take the technical manuals out of the list. You still think they can be a good writer?
Yeah, I don't know. What I was trying to say is like, I think that, for instance, I think that there are, again, we're going to go back to music. I think there are some really good musicians and writers who are not aesthetes in the same way, that aren't, for people who are into astrology and Enneagram, who aren't fours, right?
Yeah.
So like, you can be a good writer, you can be a good musician without being a 4, without being stuck in your feelings. It's just that you relate. It's not that you don't feel deeply, it's that you relate to your feelings differently. Like they get to you by different routes. Like our feelings are part of us, and they weigh in us similarly. It's just that some of us access them from different places. And that doesn't mean that you can't say things that, like, you can't then translate things into ways that other people can then feel deeply. I think one of the things I've always said about the writers that I appreciate is they take what I feel vaguely and say it clearly.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I mean, I stole that a long time ago, but like, yeah, they say clearly, feel vaguely, and you don't have to be a deep aesthete to by any means.
That's good stuff. Okay, here's one that I think we could have an interesting conversation on, and you help me watch the time because you're more mindful of it than I am. Yeah. When I think about, Ben is my oldest, and he's 9. Your oldest is how old?
10.
10. Okay. Do you have any fear of your kids finding any portion, reading any portion of this book one day, discovering parts of your story online. I know that we have already approached in a very 9-year-old way my story with the suicide and that kind of, or the suicide attempt. So what about you? Tell me, are there parts of the book that you hope your children don't read? Do you want to cut them off at the pass and have a conversation before they get there? Have you thought about it?
I've thought about it a lot. It's going to be, I think, when my kids are interested, when they express interest in reading it, that would be whenever I would decide, okay, do I think you're old enough that I can just kind of, like it's a conversation I want to have at an early enough date that either they will have heard it,
yeah,
or by then I will have either I will have talked to them or I will talk to them as they're starting to read. I especially my son, my oldest, who's very, very much like me. The one thing, like the mantra from me to him is to do not hide.
God, I love that.
So that's that is kind of the overwhelming mantra is do not hide. We don't hide. Be who you are, and whether the good and the bad, and we'll deal with what comes out of it. I want to honor that in my kids' lives as well.
I love it.
For me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, let's talk about religion. I've got like 3 questions under that category. 1, after the hell that you've walked through and some of the hell that you have admittedly caused, where does that which we call God fit into your narrative today?
There's a great line that I quote by Annie Dillard early on in the book where it says that God has not absconded, but spread. And this idea that I just don't have any use for the church anymore as a place to be, as an institution. I just have zero use for it. I was for a while, I was told when I was kind of beginning to feel this way, people were like, well, the church needs you. And I'm like, okay, the church can need me, but the institution doesn't. And I have a lot of thoughts on the necessity for institutions to continue themselves. And that's probably a lot of what my next book will be about. For me, God is so separate from, once I finally was able to separate God from church, I realized not that I need to go to church more and just keep them separate, but actually I don't need church. And so I have, I found community with other people who are trying to pursue the divine in whatever way they can right now, trying to make the best of it based on what they've experienced. And so I just don't find the need to encounter the divine in any sort of straightforward way at this point. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have a heart that's open enough to be surprised by the banal, by God in the small things.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel like I need to go somewhere to do that.
Okay. Very good.
I mean, I want to hold it with open hands, like I do with with all of my faith. I really have tried to hold it open, so that if for some reason I do feel drawn back, then I can go without feeling a loss of pride or something,
I like that. Yeah. I like that. How does it work having a wife who's pretty stinking involved in the local institution of church? How does that work for you?
It's interesting. We have some really interesting conversations, and it's funny that it's that way, because for a long time, me being the pastor, I was the one who was involved in everything, and she was.
You froze there, pal. You said being the pastor, you were involved in everything, and you're still frozen. There we go. Hello? I see you now. Yep. Okay. You were the pastor. You were involved in everything, and she what?
She came to what she could. Mm-hmm. And so then we've kind of swapped. And I do actually still have my foot in the door because we're good friends with the children's minister at our parish. And I really like teaching these stories that gave me so much life as a child to other children. And, I think that children are probably the only ones left who still have the ears to hear and the eyes to see. And so I'd rather give them these stories in a way that I think can be useful down the road, rather than having them be given some other terrible version of them. So so like I do have some involvement, but it's because of my own personal relationships with people, not because of, I think that I need to be involved in it. And Michaela's involvement in the church, on the vestry, no less, has really, it's really helped, I think, in a lot of these discussions where I've been able to kind of clearly say, okay, well, I see what you're dealing with as leaders in this church, a very socially progressive church that nonetheless has a lot of money and therefore a lot of institutional pull, and a desire to continue perpetuating itself. And those discussions at that tension point have been really, really instructive for me.
I love it. Okay.
And also it's made it very easy, because the pandemic. So we're an Episcopal church. So at least half of our people are old. So we just don't meet online, and they meet online, and I can just say, I don't like online church.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you on that, by the way.
So I am more than happy for the pandemic just to keep going as far as church is concerned.
Terrible. Okay, lightning round. I have one question. You have to remove one author and all their writing from the annals of history. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, or Julian of Norwich. Who has to go? You're welcome.
I can't take out Julian. That's the one female you put on there, you ass. Make me a horrible person if I did that. It has to be Lewis. Like his stories are great, but I think if I took out the majority of his nonfiction, I would have missed out on a lot as a kid, or like as a young person, learning ways to think. But the stories are the things that stay with me, and there's really only a couple that I love of his stories, whereas The Lord of the Rings on its own, aside from the other stuff in Tolkien's larger writings, like those things are I come back to them again and again and again.
I love that. So. Okay, one more. Who's your favorite editor ever, and why is it Kay Ben Avraham?
Kay Ben Avraham.
Yes.
Is my favorite editor in the world because she is just so much fun, and you can watch her. So I'm speaking specifically as an editor and not just larger as my friend, right?
Sure.
You can watch her encounter the book through her comments. So she's reading through and she's telling you how how these things are making her feel and how they're striking her. Not just you should take this out or you should add this, or like I'm going to add these commas and stuff here, but like, holy hell, that was hilarious, or really, really spoke to me deeply, or I can tell this moved you, or like, so her way of interacting with the book is how, like, I want other people to feel the book as they read it in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool how she's a friggin' phenomenal editor, but then she approaches it as an early reader too. And that's a lovely thing to watch. Oh,
it is.
Dude, I'm really damn proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Really, really proud of you.
You pushed me through this so much. Like, you were definitely one of the horses that just kept pulling the buggy along when I was like, this is dumb. I'm not doing this.
No way, man. It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of commitment, and you've done it. And it's a gift, and you're a gift. So I love you, buddy. Congrats.
Thanks,
yeah. Where can folks follow you, and where can folks get the book?
You can get the book on Amazon.com. Just type in Tracking Desire, and depending on your reading, your past reading experiences, you might find a couple of romance novels ahead of it, but it'll be on there.
I typed it in yesterday. I was like, oh, well, right? That's something to pull up there at the top of the page.
Unfortunately, I do not have the washboard abs you see on those pictures. And then, so you can find the book, Kindle or paperback, on Amazon. The Kindle officially drops tomorrow. The paperback is already out. You can find my site, which has occasional blogs as well as links to my podcast, which I'll get to in a second, because I'm a white dude with a beard, so I have a podcast.
Sure.
So my website is joshuamkc.com. And I'm also getting more into editing myself, and so that's going to be where I keep a lot of the stuff for other people who are writing and want an editor. And my podcast is called Drunk Church History. So you can find us at DCH Pod or Drunk Church History on the various socials, and download it and listen. We're like 23, 24 episodes in.
With the other man in my life.
Yes, Lucas.
Good old Lukey. That's awesome. Well, thanks, pal. I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you later.